Most sales training never gets results, not because you can't be taught, but because the people who are doing the coaching have absolutely no business coaching it. So before you waste thousands of dollars on sales training, you need to watch this video. Now I'm going to break down exactly why most sales trainers and most sales training is pretty much worthless, and how to spot the good ones and what it should have and what you should be doing in order to get better at sales. The first one is that most sales trainers are just ego-driven trainers. And what do I mean by that? I mean that they train to sound smart. They don't train to actually help people. I'll give you an example. So if someone asks me a question like that is like, hey, what do I say when someone's like XYZ, right? Just some random example. Now, I could answer that question, but it's useless without context. And so I will usually refrain from answering those questions because I don't want to give the wrong impression, right? And so I'm going to ask a lot of follow-up questions, but in large group environments, sometimes you can't do that because it might be a very niche question. So though a lot of people will give a throwaway answer. I won't do that. I'd rather say, hey, that's a bit complex for this environment. Unfortunately, I can't answer it for you, right? Or I'll just ask a lot of questions about it. And so I'm not trying to be flashy. Also, there's a lot of context required for good quality coaching. Not all people should be coached the same, and the same piece of advice that's right for one person could be wrong for the other person. I'll give you an example. If I ask you, hey, if you're on a running track, what's the fastest way to get around it? Well, if you're a fast runner, then it's running. Okay, but if you have no legs, then it's on a wheelchair. If you're a baby, then it's crawling. If you have a car, then drive it. And most people they're not bothered. They just go, man, run as fast as you can. This is what you do. You keep your hands up.
You do these ones, right?
And they just answer fucking questions without even asking, well, do you have legs? You know what I mean? It's like if I ask you to describe my hand, how do you describe it? Right? Oh, there's a callus and there's a scar there, and I'm looking at it going I don't see any of that. It's like, oh, you didn't ask what side of the hand we were looking at. So there's an incredibly important, feedback loop that has to happen with quality coaching and training, and most people are just there to sound fucking smart, and they give the same pieces of advice to everybody because they think that they're correct. Whereas for example, I know that I have a good idea as to how I would handle that situation, and I can back up the argument. But if you scream like a Wookiee and it works, brother, good. Keep doing it. I am agnostic as to what style you use. And so, for me, I don't have a sales style. I just kind of do what I think works. But it encompasses a lot of different things. And so, but if you're one style dependent, then you're only going to teach that style. It's only going to help people, right? Or if you're a sales trainer that worked in a company for 3 months and now all of a sudden you're a sales trainer, that's all you know. It's going to be difficult, okay? Which drives into my next point, which is the problem with absolutes. If I say things like never do follow-up, never ask for referrals, only ever one cold close, don't handle objections, never get them. These are hot takes that say on the internet. The reason why it's so stupid is because there's very few definitives in the world, especially when you're dealing with human behavior, which is essentially what sales is. So there's really no one-size-fits-all approach. For me, okay, because I'm a very forthright person, I used to get tons and tons of refunds and stuff like that because I was so forthright. And then I learned from a guy who did really, really hardcore selling. And it meant that I was just a nightmare on the phones. They were horrible. I was just mean because I have that in me. So sometimes on role plays and stuff like that, I'll tell a guy to be the most arrogant, horrible version of himself that he can muster. But it's a Canadian dude who's mega nice. And he's like, oh, well, are you sure about that?
And they're like, whoa, gee golly willikers, Batman.
And so but for him, that's what he needed to hear. Would I tell myself that? No, because I'd call him a cunt and it'd be horrible. And there's no definitives. There's just what works, and what works is going to be different for different people. And you only learn that through my next point, which is experience. If you've only been selling for a year or 2 or 3, a coach you can't be. Maybe in a specific subject. I've done 50,000 sales calls. I've had more no's than all of these people have had calls. I've had more yeses than they've all had calls. Not all of them, but some of these young sales trainers. And some of them are good, and I think the messaging is fine. However, the nuance of coaching is difficult, because if you want to be a good coach, you have to remove your ego from the equation. And you have to take in years of experience in order to be effective, to be able to coach a large cross-section of the community. And if you've only been in sales for a few months, then you're not going to be a fantastic coach. Doesn't mean that you can't be valuable, but it means that if you're pretending to be like the be all and end all of it, then like it's just not going to happen because you lack real experience. Selling one style as well lacks real experience. Selling in one niche, you probably lack experience, right? And selling one modality, like, cold callers sell one way. I've never cold called. I get asked all the time, hey, do some cold calling training. You know why I don't, guys? Because I've never done it. I've done age leads, but I've never done cold calling, so I don't feel comfortable teaching it. If somebody asks me a question about it, I can use deductive reasoning to give what I think is a half decent answer, but I will defer to someone who I feel is better than me. So yeah, and that just comes with experience, because I think it's one of those things. It's like, what's that, the Kruger curve? I can't remember what it's called, ironically, but it's like the more you know, you more to realize that there is to know, okay? And so like, I know my limits, for example. All right, a lot of it comes to my next point, which is age. All right, I'm 41 years old, and I am a far better coach than what I was when I first started in sales. And I first started in sales when I was about 26, 27, something like that. It's when I was a personal trainer, but I was basically selling full time. And I was in sales for years before I even realized it, really. But like, my life experience and the amount of conversations that I've had with people, it has given me a huge leg up, and it's given me far more compassion, and it's allowed me I coach 20-year-olds different than I coach 40-year-olds because there's a different frame of reference. There's a beautiful thing in marketing. It's like the lore of 7. So it's the lore of 7 years. So think of 18 to 25. When you see those brackets, they're usually in 7-year brackets. The reason for that is because at 18, think of yourself at 18, then at 25, at 25, then at 32, at 32, then 39. These are vastly different. There's a lot of different eras of your life, okay? And, with those come scars, and they come emotional burdens, both goods and bads. It's also a little bit of wisdom, but also the ability to be compassionate when you see people making mistakes, okay? One thing I never do is I don't get mad at people who don't buy. You know who do that? You know who does get mad at people that don't buy? Fucking 22-year-olds. You know why? Because they think they know better. Right? You're looking at someone's life through a keyhole. You have no right to judge them, okay? Because, they would look at whatever they're good at, and if you're doing something stupid to them, again, life is life. So I think, it's difficult to be a really good coach when you're very young. Okay, so here's what actually works with sales training. Now, I've been a sales coach for a long time, and I sell full time. That's my job. I have a sales coaching program. It takes me 2 hours a week. All the rest of that time, I'm selling full time, and I coach some teams that I'm involved in. But I sell a lot more than anything else. I sell my product, dialer.io, okay? Sponsored by me. It's the best dialer on the planet. If you want more help with dialing, if you think that your team could get more help with outbound, go down below, dialer.io, book a call, and we'll chat to you, and me or somebody else will sell you. What you really need is to do no more than about an hour to 2 hours a week of sales training, and you need to listen to your own calls a lot more than anything else. It's like 10% frameworks and 90% doing, because the doing and getting feedback is that's what's important, but you really only want one piece of feedback. One of my guys, Josh, who runs a team of committed coaches, I coach him on how to coach right now. That's what we're working on. And so he was like, hey, so we're actually going over some of his coaching sessions, and I'm coaching him about coaching, right? It's coaches that coach, right? But he does full-time sales. That's pretty much his job. But about 4 to 5 hours a week, he's coaching his team, but he is selling full-time. And so the big thing was one, figure out where they're at. Okay? If they're good, if they're bad, if they're new, if they're experienced, and always temper your advice to that, because the advice you give someone who's good versus someone who's not is very different, and that's the same and if you think of anything that you're good at, okay, how would you treat a beginner versus someone who's advanced? Along with that as well is only give one piece of real genuine feedback. Now, the difficulty in being a good coach is seeing 10 things that are wrong and only really going after one. And that's a difficult thing to do because a lot of people want to give you all the feedback because it makes them sound smart. Okay, going back to number 1, which is coaching with ego. Okay, so if I want to make that person better, I need to be disciplined enough to tell them, work on this one thing and I'll see you next week. All right, so, and it's different for everybody. But most people cannot handle multiple pieces of feedback, and it puts them into a spiral, which is why when most people get sales training, they only get worse. All right, guys, hope that was helpful. So before you go and throw 5 or 10 grand at the next sales guru, ask yourself, do they have the scars? Do they have the calls? Do they have the proof? Are they selling you a dream, or are they selling you their dream? Right? So heed my words. Bye.
Hey guys, what's up? Matt here, and I've noticed that a lot of you are not subscribed. So what I want you to do is like go over and hit the little subscription. It really helps the channel out. And if you like the kind of content that I do and you're like, hey, how can I get similar content but pay for it? Then I have a membership. You can go over and join that at any stage that you want. It's like $49 a month up to about $200 a month. And we do like live Q&As. We have a coaching call nearly every single day. And there's like well over 100 videos, and I upload like sort of private trainings and stuff that I do all the time. So if you want to check that out, go for it. You know, sign up through YouTube, cancel anytime, all that kind of good stuff.